Good evening, everyone joining in early. Welcome. I hope you guys had a wonderful day today. We'll be getting started in just a couple of minutes now. Alrighty. While we are waiting for people, guys, please feel free to drop in the chat where you guys are joining from. We always love seeing the cities. We always love seeing the community, how diverse, how spread out the community is. So drop in the chat where you guys are joining from. Plus, I would also love to see how the audience looks like today. So if you're a student, write student. If you are a working professional, write working. If you are just curious about investing, write investing curious. I see somebody is from Boston. Do we have anyone joining from Nepal today? Oh, we have another person joining from Boston as well. Anyone from California? And also feel free to drop what you guys are doing right now. If you're a student, if you're a young professional, or let's say if you are just curious about investing, right? Working student, investing curious. All right, guys, we're planning to start exactly at 7 p.m., which means we have few seconds left. We'll officially start at 7 p.m. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nepali Leaders Network's Leadership Speaker Series. My name is Alisha Khatri, and I'm going to be the host for today's session. This series exists for a simple reason. We believe leaders grow when other leaders are willing to share what they have learned honestly, practically, and without the hype. Every other Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we are joined by an established Nepali leader to share their stories, to share their real lessons. Not the story highlights, not the social media highlights, not the theory, but what actually worked and what did not. Today's conversation is especially important because real estate is one of those topics which is often misunderstood, overly simplified, or overly glamorized. Our guest today has spent a decade in commercial real estate and private equity. He is the managing partner at SpCap Group, where he focuses on long term investing in multifamily real estate. Everyone, join me in welcoming Mr. Kapil Mishra. Kapil Da, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm really glad we could make this happen. I know the audience is going to take a lot from this. I am excited to learn from your experience. And I know, let's start here. So, I shared a little bit of intro earlier about you, but I would love the audience to know about you from your own words. So, if somebody is approaching you for the first time, how do you usually go introducing yourself? Who you are, what you do, and how you got here? Few words, few sentences, summarized version.
Sure. So I have a very normal background. I just like a lot of people, just like a lot of immigrants. I came from Nepal for college, and then started working here. Got a lot of experience in different types of things. Got confused for a little while, and did different types of things. And went to business school. Worked in banking, private equity, real estate, consulting, all kinds of things. So I'm very average person. I'll share what I know, and hopefully that people will find it useful.
Perfect. But saying an average would be an understatement, Dada, with such huge experience. That perfectly sets stage, and that's really helpful context. So, guys, with that background, let's dig in now. Here's how today will flow. We'll start with a guided conversation. I'll ask Kapil Dai a few questions to frame the fundamentals of real estate investing. After that, the last 15 minutes, we are going to open it up for the audience Q&A. So if you guys have any questions at any point during the session, please feel free to drop them in the live Q&A tab. So on the bottom panel of your screen, there should be an option that has a question mark in it. If you click on it, the Q&A tab will open and you can type your question, send it to us. We'll try to get through as many questions as we can in the last 15 minutes in the Q&A session. Think of all of this less like a lecture and more like a thoughtful guided conversation, because that is what it is. And okay, Kapil Dai, let's start here. A lot of people ask for a roadmap, right? based on your experience, if you were starting all over again in real estate today, knowing everything that you know now, what would be the first 12 months look like, step by step? I know the audience is going to love to hear that from you.
Sure. So before I say anything, since we are talking about investing, I have to give a short disclaimer, which is I'm not providing any tax advice or legal financial advice. I'm not qualified to do that. Um, this is just informational, and you'll take this information what we talk about here, and if you are interested, you can explore on your own, and find your own team of professionals, and which you will have to do anyway if you are doing investing in real estate, because that will by default, you're going to have to get a lawyer, you're going to have to have your own CPA and all that. So having said that, that was a disclaimer. How would you start today? How would I start today? I mean, so you have to realize real estate is really vast. When people talk about real estate, people think buying houses. Most people think about buying houses. Well, that's a big part of it. But then we have different kinds of properties. You have multifamily properties where you have multiple units within a building where people live, like apartments. And then you have commercial real estate, which also includes part of multifamily, but also things like retail centers, industrial warehouses, data centers, self-storage facilities, mobile home parks, just vacant land. And then you have other types of things like um, debt. Like there are people who invest in debt that helps fund other real estate investors who are trying to do something with the property. So that is another way to invest. And then you have public markets where you have REITs that get traded publicly, in the stock market, right? So you could invest in those. So there are a lot of options, basically. Now, if you tell me, how do I start if I'm a student or I'm early in my career and I don't have a lot of money? What do I do now? The thing that I mention to most people, to most young people, is what you try to do is try to buy a property if you can, with maybe it's with your friends or whatnot. You're going to have a good agreement with them, a good legal agreement with them, that you can talk, where you can talk about different scenarios, who's going to do the work and who's going to bring the money and all of that kind of thing. And what I want you to do is buy a house and then rent out part of it. Okay, so if you do that early on in your career, then you're going to set up a really strong foundation for yourself, 5-10 years down the road, because then part of your cash flow is going to help with your mortgage, which is the real estate loan, is the mortgage. Some people might not know that, so just mentioning that. And it's going to help with your taxes, insurance, all that, right? So even though it does not cash flow a lot, but you might even end up living for free, depending upon where you live and where you buy, what kind of property you buy. So that is the one thing I tell all young people to do, especially when they're young. Now, if you ask me, how do you buy if you don't have any money and you really want to buy, or you want to build a career in real estate, right? So if that is the case, I'll say, hey, if you don't have money, you have hustle, right? You can be resourceful. So for example, if you know someone buys a lot of property, you can go and tell them, hey, I want to partner with you, I'll do all the work, I'll find the deal for you, I'll help manage it, or whatnot, right? Maybe you have a friend who has some money or might have some money, or his or her parents might have some money and they also interested in real estate. You can partner up with them and tell them, hey, I'm going to help you manage this property, just give me a small stake in the property, and give me a small portion of the cash flow, I just want to learn. So that's one way to get started. And then there are other types of people who are going to universities and studying real estate, and for them, they want to do a more structured professional path into real estate. For them, what I would suggest is just look into investment banks that have real estate focus, or departments. A lot of them do. Like all the big ones will have a real estate team. You go in there, you get a lot of training, intense training in the first year or second year, and that after that you can go into any private equity shop and they'll hire you for your skills, right? That's the traditional path. Now I know these days AI has come in and disturbed a lot of things in that whole structure, the legacy structure. But still, um, banks are still hiring. A lot of real estate shops are still hiring. So if you want to go after a real estate career, that is one way to do it as well. So I hope that answers the question.
It does for sure. And just one answer, and I already feel like I know a lot about real estate. So thank you about that. And next thing, I would love to know more about the mindset behind, succeeding in real estate, the right mindset to behind, because we know online real estate gets sold as like fast money, which we both know is not realistic enough, right? How do you think about building wealth in real estate the right way without chasing the hype, without chasing the unnecessary risk? Would love to hear your perspective on that, Kapil Dai.
Sure. So obviously, I think for most of you, you will understand that this is a long game. Real estate starts making money in the long term. What you can do in the short term is just cash flow, which is, let's say you have a house and you want to buy a rental property because you have some cash sitting on the side and you want to invest it either on your own or with some partners, and you buy a small, two family, three family, whatever it is, and it starts cash flowing. In the initial years, it's not gonna generate a lot of equity. So basically, whatever you put in, it's not gonna increase by a whole lot, right? Um, I know that real estate has been going up and down in different directions, and depending upon asset classes, like houses have been going up quite quickly in the last couple of years. Well, it has slowed down now, but in the last, let's say, 21, 22, 23, houses went up very quickly. Um, so in that case, your equity or your wealth can grow quite quickly, but it's still not overnight. Like it's still not a get rich quick type of thing, right? Now you can also it also depends on what you invest in. Like if you invest in retail or commercial, industrial, anything like that, it's going to be different. So the mindset should be, when you're going to buy a property, it's always going to seem very scary, because you're putting in a lot of money and you don't know how it's going to turn out, right? Even if we are buying your own house, it's still going to seem a little bit scary because you've never bought anything bigger than that, right? um, so yeah, I mean, just keep things in perspective. If you're really concerned or scared, just talk to someone who has done it before, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of guidance, and and that'll help with your confidence as well.
Perfect. That really reframes the whole idea of what success should look like in real estate. And it is a long term advice in a short term world. It's about long term game, right? Next, I would love to get more practical, get on the practical side. And this is a question that popped up in my head every single time I tried to think about real estate. How much money does someone actually need? Like numerically, how much does someone need to really get started? And are there any realistic options for beginners to get started if they don't have a lot of money?
Yeah. So again, like I said, there are different ways to approach it. You can be resourceful. If you don't have a lot of resources, you can be resourceful, right? Like I mentioned earlier, you can partner with someone. You can tell them, I'm going to hustle. The other thing that comes to mind is, let's say you are a young professional working in Boston or one of these cities, right? Very expensive places. I would tell you, hey, look for properties in the Midwest. Try to build a team in the Midwest. When I say a team, like hopefully maybe one of your college friends is working in, let's say Indianapolis or Louisville, Kentucky, or one of these places, right? Kansas City. Ask them, hey, look around for properties. Maybe we can buy it together. Because why Midwest? is it's because you can still find some relatively cheaper properties there, and you can buy a property that does not necessarily look beautiful, but you can then buy it and make it beautiful. That way you can increase the value of the property, right? So you're literally forcing value up by, let's say, sometimes it's as simple as going in, ripping up the carpet, and changing some windows and painting it, and then all of a sudden it looks much better than it used to. So it's it's on your in your imagination, like it depends on your imagination and your resourcefulness. So you can still buy cheaper properties that you can increase in value. Some people might, they might have different kinds of strategies. Like, for example, they might see a ranch house, which is one story, and then they can go in and just take the roof off. Now I say take the roof off, but obviously you need a good contractor for it. That's why I say, go into a market where there's someone there. Try to build, try to network a little bit, so that you can find some of these contractors. And there are different ways to do it. Maybe you are working with a lender in the area, and then ask them, hey, who can I talk to? I want to do X, Y, and Z. I want to take the roof off. I want to rehabilitate this house, add value to this property. You just go in and take the roof off. You add another floor and put the roof back on, and all of a sudden it's a much bigger property in the same land, right? So that's another, like, what I'm saying is there's so many different ways to add value to a given property. Now I'm giving you examples of houses because that's what is easiest to understand, but you can do the same thing with multifamily. You can do the same thing with the retail, mobile home parks, or self storage and whatnot. So there are many different ways. There's literally infinite ways of adding value if you really think about it.
And I know you mentioned about network a lot, right? And I know not everyone comes from a real estate family circle, the industry connection and everything. I know you mentioned one way of networking, maybe your friends who is interested in real estate, right? Your friends, family members, or somebody could have a real estate that you can work with, collab with. What other options are there? Is it very much necessary for somebody to have that industry connections to succeed in real estate? Or if it is, what are the different options someone can network in real estate? Is it too hard, or are there options? How does it look like for a first time investor?
No, I think you can make it. Are you able to hear me? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I got a message saying my connection might be unstable, but okay. Um, there are different ways. You can make it as hard as or as easy as you want. So, for example, if you want to buy a property in Massachusetts, there are so many different Facebook groups that have that talk about real estate. If you want to buy properties in Indianapolis, same thing. Facebook groups, meetups, conferences. You just go to one of these events. Some of them are free. Some of them are, paid events. Some of them are just online groups. But basically, eventually, you'll need to speak to someone face to face, because and on the phone quite a lot, because unless people talk to you and look at you in the face and just shake your hand, they're not going to trust you. And people don't do business with someone who they don't trust. So they need to know you are a real person. They need to know you do what you say you're going to do. And it's highly surprising. And people used to tell me this thing when I was entering the business. People don't really do what they told you they're going to do. It's like a very low bar. And so that's how you raise your reputation. It's a very easy game. You just, no matter what, you tell them you're going to do something, you do it on time. That's it. And then you meet them in person. You just talk to them on the phone, and you do this, let's say, talk to one person a day. And that means, in a year you're going to talk to at least 200 people, right? Or if you go to a conference, a real estate conference, there's so many of them. You just Google it, and in one shot you're going to meet 30, 40, 50 people, and get their business cards, and then start figuring out who you need to reach out to, and spend more time with, talking to, and that's how you do it. And within a couple of years, you're going to have so many people in your Rolodex, and you so many people wanting to help. And by the way, people in real estate, they really are helpful. They are not like some of the other industries. Here, people want to see you succeed because they know that when you succeed, they succeed as well, because it's a very symbiotic industry in some ways. So yeah.
Wonderful. Now that you know so much about real estate because of years of experience that you have had, I would love to know more about it. I mean, was there any point where you realized you have completely misunderstood real estate? Like a point that completely changed the way you thought about real estate after that? What was your journey like?
I think the most surprising thing to me was realizing that you can buy, without owning your own house. You could still go out and own a big apartment building if you really wanted to. That was a big mind opening thing for me several
Mhm.
years ago. um, and it made total sense afterwards because it's basically private equity. So you can go out and buy a business, for example. um, you can see a local hardware store, for example, and maybe the owner is retiring, right? And you tell him, hey, I'm interested in opening running your store once you retire. I just want to make sure I get a loan from the bank, and I want to get your how much are you going to charge for it, right? That sort of kind of conversation. You can basically buy a local business if you really wanted to. It's just like that. Buying an apartment building or a retail strip center or a retail mall or whatever. You're probably not going to buy a mall, but let's say an industrial warehouse. It's the same kind of conversation. um, so I bought a apartment building with other people, and it was basically private equity, using my company, when I had not even bought my house. Well, actually, in the same year that I bought my house, a little bit, a few months later. Um, so that was a big mind, a different paradigm shift for me at that time, and that's when I started my business as well.
Wonderful. Would you say there was like any mistake that you made that cost you a lot, real estate, ma? Was there any
Yes,
mistake that you remember still?
yes. So I think I made a couple of mistakes. One mistake was just trusting that the markets would continue. Well, I mean, I was not as naive, but back in 2021, the Federal Reserve was saying that they are not going to raise interest rates, right?
Mhm.
And 3 months later, we bought a property in late 2021, and at that time we were just taking the guidance from the Federal Reserve, which is to say that things are going to continue as they are. The inflation is transitory, and we are not going to raise rates. And 3 months later, they started raising rates in a historic way. So they went from pretty much zero rate to 0% to 5% over 5%. That was a historic rate increase starting in 2022. So that put a lot of pressure on that property, and we had a big cash crunch. We survived, but it was a tough time. So these kinds of things will happen in the investment business, and these kinds of things will happen in any business, right?
Mhm.
If you have, let's say, a software business, and you make a decision, you're basically making a bet, right? You think something's going to happen a certain way, and you make a big bet, and it turns out slightly different or very different, then you are in tough times. And this kind of thing happens in every single business. But the key thing is, until you give up, you have not lost, right, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, that was the mistake. Really trusting that the market would continue as they were, because they had done that in the last previous 10 years, 10 plus years. It was a low interest rate environment for a long time, and capital lending, everything was freely, well, available in large quantities. And all of a sudden, all of that changed very quickly within 6 months. So we got caught a little bit blind. We were blindsided a little bit on that. But overall, I mean, our most of our 80-90% of our portfolio did pretty well still. So yeah, we are thankful for that.
So, next thing, what do you see is the most common mistakes that beginners make, and what, how can they avoid that? Beginners को पहिलो mistake चाहिँ के हुन्छ most of the time?
um,
One could be thinking that it's a short-term gain, fast money.
yeah,
What
I
else?
mean, I think a lot of people are people are there are different kinds of people. There are A students and there are C students, right? And they don't know this, but both of them need each other. What I mean is the A students will keep analyzing things, and that makes them feel like they are making progress in the when it comes to business, especially real estate business. The people who analyze a lot, uh, they tend to miss out, uh, quite a bit, especially when the times are good. And at the and those in those during those times, the C students, I'm jokingly calling them C students, but people who don't analyze as much, who are not as careful, they are careful but not as careful. They take a lot of shots, and inevitably some of them do really well, and they tend to start building business really quickly. But both of them end up suffering sometimes, because the person who analyzes a lot suffers because they don't get a lot of progress in a short amount of time. The other person suffers because they go up very quickly and they come down very quickly, because if you're not analyzing very quick, deeply, and you're not doing your homework, and if you're not doing your due diligence, you tend to miss some big things, and that tends to hurt in a big way. Sometimes it destroys um, their finances. It really brings them down to the ground, right? So, and this happens in any business. It just same thing happens in real estate also. So it's you have to strike a really good balance, and you have to have a good team. You have to have someone working with you who is kind of like balancing you out a little bit. If you have someone like that, then it means you together you will do well, probably, right? So I think it's a mistake that's very hard to avoid. It's like it's got something to do with your inherent character.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess I'm getting that. Orko, what I'm really interested now in knowing is how did your interest grow in real estate? What was the point where you thought, okay, real estate might be something that I want to try? Was it in when you were studying in Yale, or was it after that? How was it?
Yeah, I think it was, I would say it's really after that I started working in consulting. And then while I was consulting, a lot of my work was focused around real estate. It was during the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, um, that we started doing a lot of work around helping the investment banks that were doing really complicated mortgage-backed securities and commercial mortgage-backed securities, collateralized debt obligation, all of these things. They were creating all these financial structures, really complicated structures around real estate. So we were helping them with all of these things. So that's when I started getting interested in real estate, but it was from a different perspective. It was as a consultant. And then later on, when I started working within the banks, um, we had a lot of real estate loan portfolios, and I was dealing with those from a different angle, from a more analytical perspective. So my interest in real estate really slowly grew from the lending side, and then eventually I went to the other side of the table, which is on the investing side. When you are an investor, you're really the borrower. You borrow from the banks, or you borrow from debt funds or other institutions, and to invest in property. So what we do is we look at properties, we partner up with people and investors, both retail and institutional investors, and then we have lending partners, right? Which could be banks or institution, other types of institutions, and we take all of that capital, equity capital, debt capital, and then we purchase the property, and then it's basically like running a business. When we are purchasing bigger properties, these are businesses that are generating streams of revenue over across years, right? They have a staff, a team to manage these properties on the ground, and these things are basically business. We are buying businesses. um, so they are quite a bit different from buying a house or a single property. um, but yeah, I mean, that's how I would answer it. It was a long way to answer, but it's grew slowly, and changed quite a bit.
Very well explained. Now, Dada, let's be very specific to this one advice. So let's say I was about to start the real estate investing journey, right? I'm a student, I'm still in my senior year, and I don't have a lot of money. What would be the exact steps you would tell me to do? Maybe start with house, or how do you how would you guide me? Like, go with this, then do this, then do that. How would the steps look like?
Yeah, so I think for a student like yourself, um, I would first focus on your career, really, right? Like, because there's nothing you invest in will give you the kinds of returns that will come from investing in your own skills, right? Now, if you tell me, hey, I want to build a career in real estate, that's a different story. Then you're building skills in real estate, right? Otherwise, whatever your career is, continue pursuing that. And then once you start working, it'll become much easier to get a loan from the bank because you have income. Now, if you tell me I want to start investing right now when I'm a student, then I would go back to what I talked to you about earlier, which is be resourceful. Talk to someone who has money, maybe your friend, maybe your friend's parents have a lot of money and they want to buy a house for them in the near the college. And you go and say, hey, I'll partner up with you, I'll do all the work, I'll collect all the rents, I'll fix the broken pipes and everything. You
Hmm.
just give me a little bit of maybe 5% of the equity and 10% of the cash flow, right? So you could start that way. The other thing you could do if you're an immigrant, is you could also start investing in, back home in Nepal. You could do
Hmm.
that too. Don't forget that. Because that's much easier than doing things here, because here you might have to, if you are an immigrant on F1 visa, for example, and some of you might be like that, then you have to talk to your lawyer about what is permissible, right? You might be, maybe it's okay to own a certain ownership stake in real estate business. I don't know. I think it should be allowed if you do certain things, maybe if you disclose it properly. um, for example, like if you could be a student and maybe invest in stocks, I don't know, it's the same kind of thing, right? So talk to your school. I'm sure they have lawyers on call, right? They can easily make it clear to you whether it can be done or not and how can it be done. So you can explore those kinds of things.
Yeah. Since the immigration topic came up, I also wanted to know, was there any specific advantage or disadvantage that you had being an immigrant? Did that being an international help and cause you any problem in real estate specifically? Was there any point?
Yes, quite a bit, because both in career as well as in real estate, right? In career, because even back then, when it was relatively easier, not easy, but relatively easier to get an H1B, right? Um, it was still limited, and not a lot of banks would give out loans, real estate loans, to people on a visa, right? Even back then. Now there are a couple of banks. I mean, there are a lot of banks who are giving out loans to dead people. That's why we had a financial crisis. um, so at that time, some couple of banks, one or two banks, used to give out loans to international, folks as well, people on visas. But I think after the crisis, it stopped completely for a little while. But right now, I'm not really sure if people on visa, like student visa or a H1 visa, can get a loan or not. Maybe there are institutions like that. Uh, but if you really want to invest in real estate, you can always take some of your after tax money take it to Nepal and invest it. I know a bunch of people who've done that, and it has worked for them, right? So then what you can do is it's a small amount of money. You can go and buy whatever you can buy, wherever you can buy. Maybe not in Kathmandu city because now it has become really expensive. So you can go outside of the valley and see if you can buy something because there are a lot of places that are growing there also. It's a bit of a speculation because you're hoping that things will go up. You're not really focused on cash flow at that point, but still, it's real estate, and it could be if you buy it in a good place, it might help you in the long term. 10, 15 years down the road. So those are a couple of different ways. I mean, as an immigrant and a student, it's going to be a little bit
Tougher.
trickier. Yeah,
Mhm.
trickier. Yeah.
Sense. Would you say there was any advantage, given that being a Nepali, being an international, maybe we were able to kind of build a connection with the stakeholders early? Was there any advantage as a
I think the advantage comes from not necessarily being a Nepali or an immigrant. I think it's really your resourcefulness and your um, mindset of hardworking mindset basically. So I had a couple of friends who bought ugly houses and they lived in them and they fixed it up, and all of a sudden they sold it for a big gain. But that was after they had already started working, and I think a couple of them were on visas, and the advantage really comes from your hustle character, and hustle mindset, I guess. And um, and yeah, just being resourceful, and yeah, I mean, I think that's how I would put it.
wonderful, wonderful. And now, since we were earlier talking about when should they not start, I would love to know more about that. When should someone not focus on real estate yet? Until and unless they are becoming resourceful, or until and unless they are sure that they want a career in real estate. That is one thing. But what other points should someone not focus in real estate at all? And what should they be investing their time instead in?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, once you start down the path of real estate, it's like any other business. It's gonna give you challenges, and you're gonna have a lot of roadblocks. And if you are a student who's also trying to do this on the side, right, and you are an immigrant, then just think a little bit deeply about it. You know, is it easier for you to gain skills and get a job first and then go into real estate, then start buying properties on the side, or do you think you love real estate so much that you want to start right now? If if it's the latter, then yeah, by all means, you go and start hustling and start getting in touch with people who want to buy real estate and try to see if you can add value, or partner up with them, and get it done that way. Just do it in a legal way. Just talk to your school if you're a student, right? And if you're a young professional, um, I think it's going to be easier for you.
Mhm.
It's going to be a little bit easier for you. Yeah.
Got it. And next thing, as I was doing my research on real estate for the session, one thing that came up constantly was the difference between commercial and residential real estate. So, what should beginners focus on if they're just starting, commercial or residential real estate?
Yeah, most people will tell you to focus on whatever you understand the best, which is
Mm,
probably going to be residential. But if you just look around, wherever you live, look around your town, how many businesses there are. All of these shops, these offices, these hotels, everything around you is a business, right? And a lot of them are not necessarily residential. A lot of them are commercial. So now there's a small difference between residential and commercial when it comes to apartments. If you have 5+ apartment units in a building, it's called, it's valued as a commercial property. If you have 1 to 4 units, then it's valued as a house. The valuation process is different. So basically, what I'm trying to say is 5+ units can be considered commercial. So it's It's basically, large apartment buildings are commercial properties. So think about how much commercial you see all around you. You could find it easier to go down the block and let's say that you see a car wash, and you think, hey, I can put a little bit of a technology into this place, and I can really start to make it generate more cash flow than what these guys are doing right now. I can manage it much better than these guys are doing, right? So you go to the owner and say, hey, I want to buy this from you. How much are you going to charge, right? So that kind of mindset, if you have that kind of mindset, you can go out and buy whatever, right? Like a car wash, laundromat, whatever it is, a small shop, and turn it into something special, right?
Mhm.
It's up to your imagination, basically.
You really need to get creative, right? Really need to
Yeah,
take the risk.
if you're interested in it, it's very exciting because you can turn something into something else. You can
Mhm.
make something out of nothing,
Yeah,
basically, and add value to a certain property, and you know eh, that can lead to something bigger and bigger, and that's how you scale.
wonderfully explained. Next, since we were talking a lot about having to spend some time building the skills and making yourself resourceful and everything, what exact skills would you say is necessary or helpful to be successful in the real estate? What should a real estate investor have in himself and should on focusing, improving? What are the exact skills that you would pinpoint?
Yeah, so if it really depends on what you want to achieve within real estate, right? If it's just a few properties that you want to buy, you don't really need you don't really need a lot of skills. Like you
Mhm.
don't really need a degree, from a university. Um, but if you wanna, let's say, if you wanna invest as an institutional investor, if you wanna scale up and go and work for an investment bank or a private equity shop, you will need some skills. You will
Mhm.
need to know how these things are analyzed, valued, underwritten. You should be able to create some you know analytical models to analyze these properties, do some due diligence. So they can train you once you are in that type of career. But it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to just go and buy a car wash, like I talked about earlier, and just put some new equipment, new computers and whatnot to automate some of it, where they have people working, then you don't really need some skills. You just need a little bit of imagination.
And
It's
creativity.
basically, in real estate, everything has been done kind of. Well, I not necessarily everything, but you just have to copy what works and just use that somewhere else. So it's pretty simple, but at the same time, it's not easy, right? So it's simple but not easy because it takes capital, it takes a little bit of hustle. It makes it takes pushing yourself into an uncomfortable situation and expanding your comfort zone.
Makes
So
sense.
yeah.
Makes sense for sure. And in almost over a decade of experience in commercial real estate, what are some crazy things that you have seen work in real estate? For example, you just mentioned about car wash, right? What has been like, how is somebody making money out of this kind of situation? Like, couple of them. Are there any stories?
Yeah, so I'll give you one example. I mean, I already mentioned a couple, right?
Mm-mm.
I talked about how I was surprised how someone can buy an apartment building without even owning a house, for example. But I'll give you another example. Some properties have these cell towers in their backyard. And why do they have cell towers in their backyard? Well, it's because this is generating cash flow for them. They are letting these cell tower, like T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T, put a tower in their backyard, in their industrial next to their industrial warehouse, and that is generating cash flow for them. Same thing. Let's say you have a little property or a vacant land right next to I-95 somewhere. You just put a billboard. You just get a permit and put a billboard there, and have sponsors pay you money for displaying their signs. Now, there are different steps to doing that, but it's crazy what you can do, right? If you're a little bit imaginative, and it's it's going to generate a lot of cash flow forever, basically.
There are really many ways to
Yeah, so
succeed
many
in real
ways.
estate, aren't there?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Next thing, if you had to like give advice, let's say if you were talking to a younger Kapil Mishra, right, who is just starting in real estate investing, what would be that one line of advice that you would give to him right now that you know so much about real estate?
Yeah, I don't think I would change anything. I would just say, keep doing what you're doing, and it's going to be all right. Because when you're putting in a lot of money on the line, right, it feels like you're jumping off a cliff, and it looks scary. So there was a couple of times in my life where I was really scared, you know, um, because it takes a lot of capital. It was
Mm-hmm.
not only my capital, but my investors' capital, um, to buy a piece of property, or it's basically buying a business. That can be scary, and I would just go back and say, hey, it's going to turn out fine. Don't worry about it. Just keep doing what you're doing. Just focus on the next step.
Wow, absolutely amazing. Kapil Dai, there's a lot of depth in what you have just shared. I know the audience is getting a lot away from this conversation alone. Now we are almost closer to 8, which means now is the time we'll open it up for the audience Q&A. So guys, now is the time. If you guys had any question at any point during the session or something resonated with you, now is the time you can write those questions in the Q&A tab. You will see an option on the bottom panel. Somewhere in the middle, there will be like a question mark. Click on it. The Q&A tab will open. Write your question, send it to us. We'll try our best to go through as many questions as we can. All right, I'll give you guys a couple of minutes, but we're starting to see the questions come in already, which means you guys came prepared. These are solid questions. I'll spotlight a few questions for Kapil Dai to answer. So, all right. The first question is from Suhani. I specifically picked this question because it talks about high school graduates. What are the best ways to start working in real estate, and are there opportunity available for high school graduates?
um, so again, it depends on whether you're talking about a formal career or not, right? um, there are banks that will hire you as a real estate analyst. There are private equity shops that might hire you as a real estate analyst. um, if you are in high school, then again, you gotta hustle. You have to add value to someone, right? And tell them, hey, I'm gonna find a property for you to buy, if you can give me a 5% stake in that property, or something like that, right? You have to add some kind of value. Or you can say, hey, I built a SaaS software. I used AI to build this app that's going to help you save a bunch of money. If you can give me a small stake in your property, I can, give this to you for free. Whatever. I'm just making it up, but you get the idea, right? You have to provide some kind of value to get a foot in the door, right? So yeah, I mean, there are different ways to do it. Depends on your situation. High school student might have a lot of time in their hands, in terms of, they have a lot of time in their career left. So they can do a lot of things, and they don't necessarily have a family to take care of, so they don't have big expenses, right? They can survive. They can stay with their parents. They don't have to pay rent, right? So that can be their advantage. For someone in college, it'll be a similar kind of thing. You have to hustle a little bit and provide value. If you're a early career professional, then you have to think about, okay, can I do it on my own, because now I have income. So lenders can lend me money, or you can partner up as well. That's what I did. I was already working, and I was partnering up with other people to buy property.
It's always about being proactive, right? Going
Yeah.
ahead and showing them that this is what I can offer you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I call resourcefulness. You reach out to people, ask for what you want, and you say, hey, this is the value I'm providing, and make a irresistible offer. Don't provide value that is not very
Avoidable.
valuable. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Next question we have from Anonymous, and I highlighted this because it talks about, I guess, the tech skills required. How do I learn to analyze real estate properly? Any resources? Where do I start?
Yeah. So what you know, different properties will be analyzed differently. So I would say just Google it. There's so many different. So first you need to decide what you want to analyze. A house. How do you analyze a house? There are different types of Excel models you can probably download. There are online classes. Probably a lot of free resources that you can take online. You can ask Claude or ChatGPT to create a simple Excel model for you, so that you can analyze a house. You can do the same thing for a retail property of for a 5 unit apartment complex, or a 10 unit property. So there's so many things available online, and you can do that. If you want to scale up, then you probably need a little bit of formal education, but basically you can buy a property with the simple tools, pretty simple tools, if you really understand it.
It's really crazy how much AI can do, isn't it?
Yeah, if used correctly, right? It's just like any other tool.
Wonderful. Next, we have from a buyer's perspective. Just curious, from a buyer's perspective, with a 5% down payment available, is it financially smarter to purchase a home now or take on a higher mortgage with mortgage insurance, or wait until I can save 20% to avoid mortgage insurance and reduce the long term cost?
This is a great question. My answer is it depends on what you want to do with that house.
Mhm.
So if you want to have that house and live in it, it's fine. It's not going to be a great financial decision. It might be a great emotional decision if that's what your spouse, your better half or other half, wants to do and makes them happy. Yeah, maybe you should do it for that reason. But it's not a good financial decision if you're just buying a house 5% with high PMI, high mortgage insurance. I think that's what they're asking. But let's say that you have a 5% down available. You buy it and you live in half of it and you rent the other half out, right? Basically, if you make it generate some cash flow, then it's a great idea. Yeah, I would say just run the numbers,
Just run the number.
right? So just run the numbers, and if it makes sense, if you're renting part of it or all of it out, then yeah, I think you should do it. I think for 5%, if I'm correct, if I recall correctly, I think you might have to live in part of it at least, and if you're renting part of it out. So yeah, I mean, as long as it's generating some cash flow for you, it is a good idea. It probably is a good idea. You have to run the numbers still. I don't know how your mortgage insurance is going to be, but as long as you're getting enough in rent, if it's erasing most of your mortgage, for example, then that might be a great thing to do.
Wonderful, wonderful. Very well explained. Next, we have from Anonymous. It says, what does your current portfolio look like? Which real estate assets should I buy first?
Yeah, so I have already sold a bunch of apartment communities I bought. The first one I bought with another company. So my company merged, is not merged, but like partnered up with another company to buy a 78-unit property down in Houston. Um, we sold that recently for a pretty good return for the investors. We more than doubled their money at a time when that kind of multifamily property has gone down 30% in value on average, right? So it was a great return for the investors. My other property is also similar. It's same kind of multifamily apartment complex. Um, there's another one we sold. We've sold a few different ones in the past. So right now it's mostly apartments. We have been looking at buying some commercial real estate. So I think that's part of your question. And then which real estate asset should I buy first? Well, again, we've talked about it during this discussion. You can buy whatever you want. You just have to figure out what you're going to do with it. It depends on your plan. You could buy a car wash, like we talked about earlier. You could buy a laundromat, You could buy a portfolio of vending machines. There's so many choices. You could buy a house and rent it out, or you can make it a short-term rental. You can make it a medium-term rental, furnished housing, and or you could buy a 4-unit apartment, small apartment community, or you can buy a big one with other partners and investors. You can buy warehouse, retail, so many different options.
Wonderfully explained. Next, we have from Ankit Dada. He has a question. What's a healthy cash flow you aim for on a rental property?
So it really depends on what you want or what your investors want. Our investors typically want more than, let's call it, 7-8% uh, cash flow, cash on cash return. This is not the total return. I mean, in total, they would want to have their money doubled in, let's say 4 or 5 years, um, conservatively speaking. But if you're buying in a place like Boston, let's say that you're buying two family, duplex in Boston, then you should, I think the average return, average cash flow for that kind of property in this environment is probably 3 to 5% cash, cash on cash. And then obviously your equity is growing. Hopefully you bought in a nice place and bought a decent house or a decent property. But if you're buying somewhere in the Midwest, then your cash flow might be higher because the property is a little bit cheaper, so your denominator is cheaper, sorry, smaller, and then whatever cash flow is generating is in a percentage term is it's bigger, right? So it depends where you go. Each location will have its advantages and disadvantages. Um, so what is good for one person might not be good for the other one. So depends.
I'm definitely learning a lot about real estate in just an hour today. Next question we have from Ankit Dada again. With the cost of living going up in Boston and everyone moving out from the state, what's the market looking like right now?
So I guess the classic answer is the reason why it's expensive here is because there's a lot, enough people willing to pay those prices. The other answer is, I think, the real, I think what is happening is there's a lot of supply constraint, not enough building going on. So since there's not enough building going on, whatever demand is there is still pushing up the prices and making it not very affordable. So, and this is across the country. It's not only Boston. It's pretty much everywhere that there's not enough supply, and that's what is pushing all the prices up. It's basically economics 101. Demand supply. There's a lot of constraints to supply. It's the costs are up. It's harder to the towns and municipalities are not necessarily always friendly to building, and people are not very friendly to building building going on in their near their houses. It's called nimbyism, not in my backyard,
Not in
right? Yeah. So there are a lot of factors, but all of them are creating a lack of supply.
Got it. Got it. Next we have from Vazuke. There are a lot of questions though. Mm-mm. What are the most common risks for new investors and how can I protect myself?
Sorry, what are the most common risks?
Risks for new investors.
Yeah, I think the most common risk comes from not doing your homework properly.
Hmm.
The So is the location good? Is the property good? Are you know are you getting the property properly inspected? Um, if you miss something big uh, during the initial phases and you pay a certain price assuming everything is fine, then that might lead to a very costly mistake. A lot of people, I think the biggest risk, one of the biggest risks comes in the form of paying a very high price for a property. And I think that is a mistake that pretty much everybody makes in real estate, sooner or later. If you're buying a lot of properties at least once you're going to overpay for a property than you should have. So it's not very easy to avoid doing that.
Gotcha. This is going to be the last question because we are almost close to 8 now. So the question is from Business Rester. What's your perspective on co-op as an investment?
So I'm not necessarily sure what a co-op means for you. Can you elaborate that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. When you say co-op, are you referring to like a condo or something else?
We might have her explain that, but I guess,
If not, that's fine. I mean, we can research and respond to that later. But maybe it's just one of those things that I don't know because I'm still learning as well.
got
So
it.
it could be one of the things I'm not familiar with.
Of course. And next we have from Nikita Adhikari. Let's make this the last question, okay? Just curious, if I want to get real estate certified in my state, where is the best place to start? There are no many resources online. Not sure where to start. Any website recommendations?
Real estate certified? You mean certified as a real estate agent? If that is the case, then there are a lot of I think RIA. They're called the real estate um, agent organizations. I'm not very familiar with those. Basically, these people help other people buy houses and property. And yeah, you're right. There are a lot of resources, and you should check out one of those. I'm not the right person to ask that. I'm sorry. Um, but if you're talking about um, you know getting a certificate that'll help you get hired into a real estate firm, then yeah, I mean, just look at whatever the job openings are asking for, and then just try to get that certificate, right? That's what I would advise.
So that was our last question, and it's almost 8. It's almost 8. So we'll have to bring this conversation to a close. Kapil Dai, thank you so much for such a thoughtful and grounded conversation. You brought clarity to a topic that is often confusing. I know the audience is taking away a much more realistic framework around real estate investing after this conversation. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Your questions, your engagement is what makes this sessions meaningful. We are always looking forward to making them more valuable for you. So if you guys have a minute or two, please go ahead and fill out the feedback form. I just uploaded the link in the chat. So take a minute or two, fill the form out, and let us know how we did, what worked, what could be improved, what could be better, and what you would like to see in the future. And if you guys loved our session today, we are having another session on February 11. We are joined by Suman Raj Timsina. He'll be talking about networking the right way. He's the executive director of International Development Institute. So we'd love to see you guys there as well. That being said, we also have an update. So from maybe next meeting or next session, we are planning to change the format a little bit. So in the Q&A session, rather than just typing out the questions, you can actually unmute your mic and you can ask your questions directly to our speakers. We are planning to experiment that a little bit, and we'll see which one works the best. With that, we'll wrap it up for today. Kapil Dai, thank you so much again for being here. How
Yeah,
did you
thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Please feel free to sit for a couple of minutes and fill the feedback form that I have uploaded in the chat section. Would love to know your feedback. Thank you for taking the time in advance. And thank you, everyone. This is me, your host, and I'm signing off. Thank you, Kapil Dai.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank